everybody. Thanks for joining us on this amazing occasion. And Telfed, in the name of Telfed Jerusalem and Wits Alumni in Israel, I welcome you all here for this amazing event. And I want to call upon Aaron Seiden, the curator of the museum, to say a few words. Welcome, Aaron.
Can we sit down?
Yes.
I'd like to welcome everybody to the Martef HaShoah, known in English as the Chamber of the Holocaust Museum and Memorial on Mount Zion. My name is Aaron Seiden. My father's parents, my grandparents, were killed al Kiddush Hashem in the Holocaust, in the Shoah, and I am their only grandchild. My father, Olav HaShalom, was a survivor of the death camps, and I'm his only child, Olav HaShalom. And just like survivors built this site 70 years ago, I myself, with the help of the Almighty, am already many years continuing the site. What do you see on the walls? My grandparents, who were killed in the Holocaust, have no grave, have no gravestone. Millions of Jews who were killed in the Holocaust have no grave, have no gravestone. So after the Holocaust, survivors of Holocaust who came as refugees to Israel put up gravestones for all the millions of people killed in the Holocaust who have no grave, who have no gravestone. Okay, now even though the towns are in Europe, the big majority of the towns, they only wrote in Hebrew. The reason they wrote them only in Hebrew is because they thought in terms of a symbolic cemetery. It says on the bottom of every stone, who put up the stones, it says here, Irgun this town, Irgun this town. The organization of survivors from each town put up the gravestone for all the people of their town who have no grave, no gravestone. Okay, so this was built as symbolic cemetery for millions of people killed in the Holocaust who have no grave, no gravestone. Even more than just a symbolic cemetery, in 1949, which is 4 years after the Holocaust and 1 year after the founding of the State of Israel, they brought ashes from the crematoria, ashes from the ovens from Europe. There was a funeral with thousands of people through the streets of Jerusalem, and I was told that the ashes were buried under that black stone memorial over there. That's where they buried the ashes in 1949. Okay? Also, in the spirit of a cemetery, when you go through the rooms, you will see Torah scrolls burnt and Torah scrolls desecrated by Nazis that were brought here for what is known as gniza, for burial. So in short, this was built as symbolic cemetery, as a place for Holocaust survivors to come and cry and mourn next to the stone for their town. Over the course of many decades, it was also turned into a museum.
Aaron, thank you very much. We have a long friendship for many years, and I want to thank the Martef HaShoah for hosting us today.
Add one word to the history of the Holocaust. I want to add one word, since Dr. Glassman is my personal dentist for many years, and I can testify he's one of the best dentists in Jerusalem, but not in the state of Israel. But I want to mention one short thing my father, Olav HaShalom, told me about dentists in the Holocaust. My father once mentioned to me, he said there were two professions that when you were in the camps, there were two professions which gave you, those people had those professions, they had the highest chance to survive in the death camps. He told me the two professions were dentists and barbers. That's my father's words to me, and people know the history of the Holocaust. Should I say it to Elias? People will know the Nazis. That's what my father told me, and obviously we know why, because the barbers were because everybody who came into the camps, they shaved all their body hair right away when they came to the camps, and dentists because the Nazis took out the gold from people's teeth, and pillaged the gold. So my father told me those are the two best professions. You got better conditions, you don't have a better chance of surviving the camps.
So Aaron, once again, thank you so much, and thank you for the Martef HaShoah, for the Chamber of the Holocaust, for hosting us this morning. So on behalf, like Roy said, of Wits Alumni in Israel and Telfed, Jerusalem, I want to welcome you here. We put out an advertisement, it was a flyer that went on the mailing list, that we were going to have a group of chiefs from Matabili land that were coming to Israel when they had independence in Zimbabwe, when Rhodesia was changed and got independence to Zimbabwe, in the south, the Matabele, unfortunately there was a massacre and a genocide, and they wanted to commemorate what happened to them, and they asked us if they could come to Israel and learn from the Shoah, from what Israel went through, what the nation of Israel went through, how the survivors came to Israel, how they dealt with what the terrible past, the atrocities and the devastation, and how they've rebuilt their lives and how they've reestablished the state of Israel. So we organized this morning, and unfortunately, because of security and because of detention, we're going to have Beverly Ehrlich, who's going to read a statement from one of the leaders, not the one who I was in a lot of communication with. And I want to thank Sharice Everett from the Jewish Board of Deputies for making the contact, and please God, they will come. They've been detained and they couldn't come, unfortunately, and they give us their sincere apologies. And I just want to call on Beverly Ehrlich, who's going to read. They apologize sincerely for it was not in their hands, but the authorities wouldn't allow them to come. But we do hope that in the near future they will come, and they will learn from this amazing miracle of Israel and how survivors have reestablished themselves and rebuilt the country and rebuilt their lives. Without any further ado, we're going to call on them.
So I'm first going to read the letter that they wrote. I haven't made any contextual edits. I've just made some grammatical edits. So I'm leaving it as pure to what they wrote as is. Good morning. Pray you had a wonderful, lovely Sabbath. As you may be aware that our current blank is the perpetrator of Nabili genocide. So it is working flat out to conceal its involvement with this genocide to all vocal voices about resolving this issue. Are put under 24-hour surveillance, especially the chiefs. I might just show you a picture of some of these chiefs who were supposed to come. For the past 20 days, all the chiefs I came with at the Jewish board to meet Dr. Sachs have serious difficulties in going outside Zimbabwe. Our situation is the same as the children of Israel when they wanted to leave Egypt. Example, King Pharaoh was after them only to be served, I assume it may mean saved, by a Red Sea. Although we had a constrained budget, but all the postponement going to Israel is due to a blockade. Because of this, our delegation has been reduced to 3, excluding chiefs. We have a very difficult situation. I just pray that all those in Israel who we are supposed to meet understand this wholeheartedly. Genocide is not an easy issue to resolve, especially when the perpetrator is the government. We have a strong belief that when we reach Israel, we will be able to resolve our traumatic genocide experience, which is yet to be resolved. We need to learn as much as we can on how Israel resolved Jewish Holocaust. Then we want to apply the same methods back home using legal means and through engagement of international community. So, thank you. Here is a picture of their memorial. It says this plaque was erected on the 25th of May 2018 in loving memory of our innocent and defenseless children, mothers and fathers who perished during the Gukurahundi Matabele genocide, 1983 to 1987, and then it's inserted by these chiefs. So I'm just going to show you a picture. This is what their memorial looked like. And I say that this is what it looked like because this is what remains of the destruction of that memorial today. And here is what a demonstration looks like with the authorities. So I think this shows once again how traumatized our world is and that we're still coming to terms with the trauma.
Okay.
here's a picture that was sent to me of the group, and they're holding the Israeli flag. And please God, they'll come in the future and they'll learn from what's happening in Israel. So I just want to mention, it's an amazing fact, but I've asked many people, many patients, friends, relatives, can anybody name one Jew that saved other Jews during the Shoah? And I found the most incredible response. We had over Sukkot a family that was ex-South African. They moved to Canada. The daughter was in a midrashah. She was in a Jewish day school all her life. She came to Israel. She was in a midrashah. She went to Poland and Ukraine. She studied Holocaust studies. And she couldn't mention one Jew that saved other Jews during the Shoah. Her brother went to yeshiva. He studied medicine. He's also been in a Jewish day school all his life, and he also couldn't name. And then I asked patients who learned in the Israeli school system, and they also, most of them cannot name one Jew that saved other Jews during the Shoah. And I think it's really important that not only the next generation, but that this generation should learn our history and should learn of the tremendous, tremendous heroes that sacrificed so much to save Jews during the Shoah and to save people during the Shoah. There were many non-Jews that Chasidei Mot Olam, righteous Gentiles, but there were many Jews that also, many had to work independently. They sacrificed their lives, they sacrificed so much. And today we have a very, very special guest, a very dear and close friend, and a patient on one hand, but somebody who I'm in awe when I actually meet. Rabbi Alex Rosin, I managed to interview and we became very close, and Alex's story is absolutely spellbinding. So it's really the greatest honor, the greatest zchut to have you today. It's your first time in the Matafa Shoah, and Alex is going to relate his story. And for the people in Matabele land in Zimbabwe, when you hear Alex's story and you hear how not only will you hear a story, but you'll be seeing history. You'll be seeing somebody who came from the depths and has risen to the greatest heights. So without further ado, Rabbi Alex Rosin, it is the greatest honor and privilege to have you here today. And I really, really thank you so much.
I'm delighted to meet you all. As my good friend Les, this was our friendship doesn't go very, very far away. It's only very recently that Les one day phoned me up and said that I heard that you were a Holocaust survivor. You came on the Kindertransport from Poland, and could I possibly come and interview you? And I said, of course, yes, because since my retirement, I was by profession a teacher of languages, and since my retirement, I have given many different conferences to adults, school children, Jewish and non-Jewish. And so when he asked me to take this interview, I said, you'll be very welcome to do so. I was born in December 1940 in Poland. I was the youngest of 3 children, having had 2 elder sisters. When I was, as I said, I was the youngest. When I was 6 months old, unfortunately, my mother, Oliver Schon, passed away. So that means I never knew my mother. Imagine the scene for one moment in Poland in 1941. Germans all over. My father, who now was a widower, he had 3 tiny children with him. He was at a loss to know what to do, where to go. Should he run with his children, with us, or what else? So my father went to a very important town in those days called Wits, where there was a very large Jewish community in those days. Remember that Poland had some 3 million Jews living in Poland before the war. And in this town, there was a great sage, great Chacham, great Rabbi, and somehow my father got to know of this, and he said to himself, I must go and see him and ask for his advice, what I should do. So he took us all to this great rabbi, and he asked him, please give me advice what I should do. I've got 3 little children with me. My wife has just passed away. So the rabbi said, I will give you the advice. I've already given the same advice to some other parents. My advice to you is that you should take your 3 children to a little village outside of this town, a little village called Dandovka. In that village, all the residents are extremely, extremely poor. Strong Catholics, but extremely poor. Peasants, if you like. Completely illiterate. But for money, for a large sum of money, they will be prepared to hide your children. My father took the advice. I was at the time just 1 year old, not even a year old, the baby of the family. Apparently he took us, went to this village, knocked on a house at random, and apparently he brought us into this house, and this lady, her name was Boyka Katarzyna, who had no husband, but had a little boy of her own, my age, I think a year old. And he sat down and he said to this lady, I will pay you a large sum of money if you can hide my 3 children for the duration of this most terrible war. And that's exactly what he did. He said, I will pay you all the money that I have, and I would ask you to hide my 3 children for the duration of this war. And then, of course, being peasants, they couldn't write or read, but he wrote a few lines on a piece of paper in which he said the following: if I don't come back alive after the war, I want you to know that I've just taken your name and address, how many children I've left with you, and from here I'm going back to this rabbi who gave me this advice, and he will have your name and address, so that if I don't come back, I will make arrangements with this rabbi that after the war, a Jewish man will come possibly and take out my 3 children and integrate them once again into the Jewish community. This he wrote down. This is what he told the lady. He made a sign just with an X, and he left a few photos of himself, my mother, and of us 3 children. And he went away. He went away obviously to try and save himself. The story goes that I grew up in this house, and my father never returned. I grew up in this Catholic, very strong Catholic house for 6 years. I certainly had no knowledge that this lady wasn't my true mother. And for 6 years, I was treated like her son, loved by her as a son. Her little baby boy became my brother, whom I loved. We loved each other with a very strong love between us. In those days, of course, there was no schooling, so we used to play every day outside the house. In those days as well, after the war, my so-called mother, Boyko Katarzyna, she used to warn us never to leave the house on our own. Why? Because there were gypsies who came and they camped very near our house. And I don't know if you know, but the gypsies, their livelihood was to steal lonely children from the streets and sell them for money. And that is why my so-called mother, she warned us never to leave the house or never go far from the house on our own. I must tell you that this lady, Boyka Katarzyna, she showed me the same love as she showed her own son. Love, warmth, and affection. I must tell you that at one point, I think I must have been 3 years old. We were in bed. Oh, I must tell you, very importantly, before I go on, the rabbi of the town that my father got the advice, he had a tremendous premonition. He was a very big sage, big Talmid Chacham. And I think it must have been the beginning of the war, or just before the war broke out. He sent out letters to all the people of that town, telling them that from this day on, any boy that was born, he must not be circumcised. He must not be circumcised. And this advice, in a way, saved my life. That I'm here today is because of this great rabbi who made this fantastic, wonderful decision. And now I'll tell you why. Because at the age of 3, I think, we were in bed, my brother called Bishu, we were in bed, and 3 Nazis came in. because they knew perfectly well that Polish peasants were saving Jewish children for money. So these 3 nuts came in, they dragged us out of bed, and they said to the woman, "Who are these children?" So of course she said, "What do you mean? They're my children." They took us at home, asked us to take her down our pajamas to see if we were circumcised. And here you see, my friends, that the fact that I was not circumcised saved my life. Had I been circumcised, not only I would have been shot, but she and her son would have been shot as well. Why? Because how dare you hide Jewish children? This was my first miracle of my life. To go on, the 3 Nazis were convinced and they left. And I was saved to tell my story today. At the age of, also I was for 6 years living as the woman's son and the brother of Spiritual. And one day, thank you, Les. One day, as we were playing in front of the house, from a distance, we see a man approaching. And as he came nearer, we saw him looking left and right. And as he approached quite near, we saw that he had a little piece of paper in his hands. And although our mother warned us not to speak to strangers because of this reason, for one moment I forgot, and my brother and I went up to him and said, "What are you looking for? You seem to be lost. You're looking for something." He said, "Yes, I'm looking for," and of course my father, when he left, before left this Catholic house, he took a description of the house, a detailed description of the house, which he gave to this great rabbi in this town of Sosnovich. So this gentleman, first of all, for the first time I think in 6 years, I see a gentleman well dressed, because they were all peasants. They were wearing schmatzes or very hardly anything worthwhile looking at. And when I saw this gentleman, I said, "Well, obviously he doesn't belong here. Perhaps I should ask him what he's looking for." So we went up to him and we said, "Could we help you?" He said, "Yes. I'm looking for a certain house with red bricks and with a woman called Boyko Katarzyna." Can you imagine? His name, by the way, his name was Simcha. That was his name. And when he told me, "I'm looking for this certain house with red bricks and a woman called Boyko Katarzyna," I immediately said, what did I say? "This is my mother. This is my house you're looking for." You can imagine the simcha that Simcha had on his face. He said, I've been walking for miles. For 4 hours I've been walking looking for this house. So he now said "Now that you told me this is your house, can you please take me to meet your mother?" Remember, this is in 1947. I've been in this house for 6 years. And although our mother said, don't speak to strangers, but I saw that there was somehow something in me which said, you should help this man, and you should take him into the house. I don't know why, but that was my reaction. I took him into the house, and then once he was inside, we went. My brother and I went on playing outside. The gentleman spent approximately half an hour with my mother, and then he said goodbye to us, thanked us, and he went away. On entering the house afterwards, I said to my mother, I must tell you that none of her family ever came to visit her. I don't know why. No one of her family. So it means that the only person I knew was this lady and her little boy. That's all I knew. My whole life was circled around this lady and this boy and a couple of neighbors. That's all. That was my world. And of course, every Sunday morning, being a strong Catholic woman, I had to go to church with her every Sunday morning. She never talked about religion. The only thing she said to me, you must come with me to the church every Sunday morning. So coming back to this man, who was called Simcha, his name was Simcha Rothfeld. In fact, he was the Rabbi of this rabbi that my father went to. When I came into the house and I said, Mummy, who is this man? She said, well, it's just a man who came to ask me if I want to work for him. Being just six years old, I'm not going to argue, I'm not going to continue. So I accepted what she said. Briefly, this man came 5 times to our house. At the 5th time that he came, when he went away, even I, as a young little boy of 6 and a half, my curiosity was burning. I said to myself, she said it's not her brother, it's not her family. The first time she said he came to ask me if I want to work for him. She's never gone to work for him. So what is this story that she's telling me? I then said to her, I want you to tell me the truth. 5 times you told me a different story, and each time it's never realized. Now I want you to tell me the real truth. Who is this guy? She said, sit down, my son. She told her son to go into another room. She said, I want to speak just with Alex. My Polish name was Alec Rebenstok. That was my real Polish name. She says, Alec, sit down, and now I'll tell you the truth. So I sat down, and as I sat down, she started crying terribly. I said, what's wrong, Mommy? Is it because of this man? What's he done to you? She said, no. It's nothing to do with this man. I'm crying because this man who came 5 times did not come for me. He came for you. He came to take you out with him. Can you imagine? 6 years, I'm 6.5, and for 6 years I was day in, day out. I was with her, loved by her, loved by her little boy. And so she said to me, I want you to know, my darling son, that I'm not your mother. And this little boy, Zbishu, is not your brother. Your father, some 6 years ago, came to me, paid me money in order to hide you from the Germans. Can you imagine my shock? I was glued to this chair as she was talking to me. I said, what are you talking about? Have you gone crazy? Either you've gone crazy or I'm crazy. Not my mother. She told me I was a Jewish child. My father brought us here to hide here because of the Germans. I was completely in utter shock. It's like a tremendous electric shock that went through me. At that moment, I thought I couldn't move from the chair. And I said to her, what are you talking about? She said, yes, this is the truth. This man has come for you because your father 6 years ago made me sign a piece of paper and made me promise that after the war, if he didn't return alive, you would have to go with this Jewish gentleman. And this is the gentleman who has in fact come to take you. Can you imagine a little boy, 6.5, to hear this? So she tells me, 6 years ago, you came with your two sisters. So I said to her, because as I was growing up, my sisters weren't there. So I said to her, where are my sisters? What have you done with them? She said, well, as you know how poor I am, and to tell you how poor she was, just for instance, there were times when we didn't even have a piece of fresh bread to eat in the house. I think our menu, for 6 years was always the same. Potatoes, rice, tomatoes, cabbage. This was our menu. So she said, as you know how poor I am, we are. Your elder sister, after being 6 months in this house, she died of starvation. And I buried her. And my second sister, your second sister, I couldn't support either. I couldn't support you, my son, and your second sister. So I gave your second sister away to some other people. And this is the reason why I grew up on my own for 6 years in this house. Briefly, because it's such a long story, she told me that this man, the same man called Simcha, he would be returning in 2 weeks' time to take me with him. During the 2 weeks, I I think if I hadn't gone crazy mentally, that's also a big miracle. To have heard what my so-called mother told me. She wasn't my mother, this wasn't my brother, the Germans, Jewish child, all this was in my head, a little boy of 6 years old. But somehow, during those 2 weeks, there were two different voices. One voice said to me, Alec, if this was the wish of your father, that you should be saved and be integrated into a Jewish family as a Jewish boy, then perhaps I should listen and I should really go with this man. The other side, the other second voice said, he's a stranger. This is your home. It's been your home. This is your whole world is here. Why should you leave? The woman who loves you, the little boy loves you. Can you imagine the turmoil in my head? A boy of 6 years of age. But as destiny would have it, this same Simcha, he came for the 6th time. But not on his own. He came with his wife. They came into the house, and this time they didn't come empty-handed. They came with several parcels in their hands. I just told you earlier on that our whole menu, the only food that we ate was potatoes, rice, tomatoes, and bread, when we could get fresh bread. I'd never eaten a fruit for the whole 6 years that I was in that house. So these two people come, Simcha and his wife's name was Sonia. They came into the house with his packets. They undid the packets, the parcels, and the first thing that was open was 2 little miniature trains. Remember, she was so poor that for 6 years I didn't know what a toy was. I didn't tell you also that for 6 years I didn't know what socks and shoes were. Even in the winter, she used to knit some like slippers for us. And then they opened this second parcel, and there was some fruit on the table. The first fruit I picked up, I don't know what it was, but it was an orange. And I started eating the orange. So the lady called Sonia, she said, Alec, it's not how you eat it. You've got to peel it. And that was my first fruit for 6 years. To be brief, as I said, this little voice of my father wanting me to come back as a Jewish boy, I decided, and there were such sweet people, such warm people, this Simcha and Sonia. You could see the warmth on their faces. And she put me on her knees, and my brother. She kissed us both. And somehow, at that moment, I said to myself, I think I'm convinced, in spite of everything, that I must leave this house. That's my father's wish, and I'm going to go with him. And so I left the house, saying goodbye. Tremendous difficulty. I was crying bitterly, she was crying bitterly. My brother, he was screaming, and he said to Simcha, why are you taking my brother away? If you take him, take me as well. that was my last day in this house, poor family, but most loving, warm family. And I said goodbye, and we came to this important town called Wits. And I lived in this house. He was, of course, the Gabbai of the Rebbe. It's called the Regina Rebbe. And this is where I stayed for 6 months. He took me to the shul for Shabbat. I knew what he started explaining to me what a Jewish boy is. Started teaching me the Aleph Beis. I grew up in this house for 6 months, once again with tremendous warmth and love from these two people who also escaped the Nazis. They and her parents, they managed to survive this horrific Nazi war. I must tell you that in 1947, you must have all heard of this. There was a very big pogrom in this town, in Poland. The pogrom was that the Polish bandits, they were accusing the few Jewish people who managed to survive of stealing children from the street and taking them as their children in their homes. Not only that, but that they killed a boy and used his blood to make the matzahs for Passover. As this program started, my new guardians, they were afraid because these bandits, they were in the habit of kidnapping, going to the Jewish homes and kidnapping the children. But luck as it would have it, that there was a rabbi from England who was a great friend of this Regina Rabbi. And this rabbi, who because of his schus, that so many hundreds of Jewish children were saved, he then, in 1947, was invited to the United States as a rabbi. But he handed over the list that he had of all the children wherever they were hidden to this man called Simcha Rothfeld. And he said to him, my friend from England, Rabbi Schonfeld, is coming to Poland, and I will no longer be here because I'm going to America, but here is the list, and you must go with him throughout Poland and find all the hidden children possible. And that's what happened. This rabbi from England, Rabbi Schonfeld, came, and together with Simcha Rothfeld, they went all over Poland with the list of addresses, and they managed to find 135 orphans, myself included. And this Rabbi Schonfeld, he then arranged for us all to go by ship from Poland to England. But this couple, Sonia and Simcha Rothfeld, told me that this rabbi would take us all, them and myself, to England. But somehow, the day before we were supposed to depart, this lady Sonia, for the second time in my life, someone says to me, sit down, I've got something important to tell you. I said to myself, I didn't know the words in those days, but if I could have said, Rabboni Shalom, Almighty God, what else is going to happen to me? What else is she going to tell me? She said, my dear Alex, I told you that this rabbi was going to take us and you and all the children he could find to England. But unfortunately, we've just heard that the Polish government will not allow any children above the age of 16. Only children below the age of 16 were allowed to leave with this rabbi. So that means that we cannot go with you. So you see, once again, where I felt love again, I found love again, warmth, affection. Yet again, I was to be torn away from the people I loved, and to be handed over to yet a third hand. But they said to me, you should go, and there in England, you will be safe. And possibly the same rabbi will eventually bring us as well. So we left Poland on this ship, 135 orphans, and this Rabbi Schonfeld, he had a Polish woman, because the only language we could speak was Polish. He couldn't speak Polish, he only spoke Yiddish and English. And he then brought this woman to translate for us. I don't know if you can see, this book was written by a great historian in New York, in the United States, all about the life of this great hero called the Holocaust hero, Rabbi Dr. Solomon Schonfeld. He was dressed, as you see, as a soldier. The reason, I must tell you why. He was a rabbi, very great rabbi in England. And his father-in-law was the chief at that time, in 1947, was the chief rabbi of England. And he wanted to come to Poland with the Polish bandits. He wants to come as he was in this as a rabbi. So his father-in-law said, "You're crazy. Even to go into Poland, you're risking your life. But if you go as a rabbi, they'll kill you. Go and find a uniform as a captain of the British Army, and that's how you should go. And that's how you see that he's dressed as a soldier." There are pictures here. It's very difficult for you to see, but this top picture shows us on the actual ship coming from Poland to England, and you see the youngest little boy in the center, and that's me. Okay, great. Afterwards, perhaps you can see a closer picture. So we came to England. In England, he bought a very large center where we all stayed in the same place. We slept, we ate there, and he put, as he came back to England, he put an announcement in a Jewish paper called the Jewish Chronicle that there are 130 orphans who have just arrived from Poland, and anyone wishing to adopt this is the telephone number and address where they can come to. So each day, different people came along and picked up a girl or a boy and took them along. I was left within the last 5 of 135 children. And even I, as a little boy, I'm not even 7 yet, but even I, as a little boy, said to myself, what's wrong with me? Am I so ugly that nobody wants me? I see all these girls and boys leaving, and I was still there. And then, of course, eventually, a lady came for me. And this Rabbi Schonfeld said, Alec, you must go with this lady. So I went with this lady. I came to a house. She was of Russian origin. She had a husband and a daughter. And of course, I only knew Polish. As I said, she was Russian. But she had a neighbor who was Polish, and she called him to translate for me. And she said to me, through the Polish man, I'm not going to be your mother. The person that's going to be your mother is away on holiday in America. But before she went away, she asked me to pick up a boy and take it into her house, and that's what I've done. And in 3 weeks' time, the real person who's going to be your mother and father, they'll return from America, and that's where you'll be with them. 3 weeks later, this Uncle Max, I called him Uncle Max, took me to shul, and on the way he said, now in this shul today, you're going to meet your future father, who is going to adopt you. So he introduced me to this man called Mr. Rosin, and after shul, he took me to his house. Of course, he was a very religious man, and for this, I came into the house. I met my new mother. Again, this couple had no children of their own, but they were tremendous tzaddikim. He was a Rabbi in the synagogue, a warden in the synagogue, well respected in the town in London. This is in London. And I grew up in this house, wonderful parents. And after 3 years, 2.5 years, I had to be adopted officially. So my father, on the eve, before going the following morning to the court to be adopted officially, my father said to me, Alex, I want to give you a choice. What name, when the judge asks you, what name do you want to be called? Do you want to keep your Polish name of Alec Rebenstock, or our name, Alex Rosin? In the 3 years that I've been in this house, and I must tell you as well, that it took a year and a half before I could be circumcised. It means 8.5. I was so ill when I came that the moil said you cannot circumcise your son for at least a year. So it means that 8.5 I was circumcised. So I was, as I said, was a wonderful home. I was put in the school, I was educated, I grew up in the towns, and eventually I got a degree in languages. I became a rabbi as well, studied in the rabbinical college, and I married a French girl, a beautiful French girl called Solange, and we married. We had our two girls in London, and after 17 years of marriage, my darling Solange, God rest her soul, all Shalom, she said to me, I want to go back to Paris, because she came from a large family and I didn't have any family at all, only my adopted parents. So, as a gentleman, I said, okay, find me a Jewish school in Paris and we'll go. And so I went. We left London in 1986 and we went to live in France. My children grew up, they married in France. Baruch Hashem, I have 7 grandchildren, Baruch Hashem, to show Hitler that he wanted to eliminate me. He wanted to kill me. To force to be the only surviving person of the whole family. But here I am, alive, formed a wonderful family, and Baruch Hashem, I'm here. So, and now, as I said, I've got a wonderful family. Then one day, I made a promise to myself that I would never ever set foot again in Poland or Germany. And for years, my new parents, they wanted me to forget the past, live a happy life in school with my friends, which I did. And then in 1995, I was in the shul in Paris, and the rabbi of the synagogue announced that in 2 weeks' time, the whole community is going for a one-day trip to Auschwitz, Poland. I, who made a promise I would never go, I must tell you, just before this, that in 1995, I was about to marry my eldest daughter. My eldest daughter was getting married in 1995. Okay? Just a few days before the wedding, in my dream, in Paris, I'm in Paris, in bed, in my dream, my real mother, whom I never knew, suddenly I heard her voice for the first time in my life. She said to me, my darling son, first of all, I've come to wish you a very big mazel tov. But far more important than that, I've come to tell you how proud I am of you. I couldn't see her face. Not that I knew her face, because to this day, I don't even have one photo of her. But I heard her voice for the first time in my life. And then I married my daughter, and then of course the Shabbat afterwards, I hear this rabbi telling us that we're going, the whole community, for a one-day trip to Auschwitz. I came home from that Shabbat, and I said to my darling wife, my darling Solange, I've just heard that the whole community is going to Auschwitz for one day. And I don't know why, but till now, that I've said I never want to go back, somehow the fact that my real mother spoke to me, it's as if she pushed me, encouraged me to go. And now I want to go. And so I decided that I would go. I came to pay for the trip, and the rabbi and the whole committee of the shul, they knew my story, and they said, no, you, Alex, it's our schus, our honor and privilege that you want to come with us. We will pay your trip. So, just before the Sunday arrived, the English rabbi who gave me certain papers when I came from Poland to England, I kept those papers for over 60 years, hidden in my desk. I now said to myself, I'm going to Auschwitz. I'm returning there, back to Poland. Perhaps I should make a photocopy of all these little papers that I've kept for 60 years. And perhaps in Poland someone will be able to help me trace my family. Remember, I have no trace of my parents or any member of my real Polish family up to the present day. We came to Auschwitz for the one-day trip, and precisely 1 o'clock, because we took a whole plane for the community, 250 people. And at 1 o'clock, everybody went for lunch. Of course, we were divided into groups with French-speaking Polish guides, of course no Jewish. And when everybody went away, this particular guide that I was listening to, the way she explained, it's like words that came directly from her heart. And when everybody went away, I said to myself, Alex, stop this woman before she goes and speak to her. So I said, lady, madam, could I have 5 minutes of your time before you leave? I have something very important to ask you. She said yes. And then briefly, I told her my story. And I said to her, you who work here, could you possibly help me? She said, yes, I'm prepared to help you if I can. I gave her my papers, all that I had, photocopies. And I said, well, if you can help me, this is my address, this is my telephone number in France, and if you can help me, please do so. The day went by. At the end of the day, I gave her my telephone number and address, and we went back to Paris. A month and a half later, this is all in 1995, in France, I received a letter from her, from this Polish guide. And in the letter she says to me, I've been very busy, so please accept my apologies, because I'm not only, I work 3 days at Auschwitz, but I'm also a French teacher in the school. So I've been very busy, but now I have some good news to tell you. I have found your brother, the little boy that I grew up with in this Catholic house. I have found your brother, and I've already been to his house, and I've told him that you're alive. And he told me that he's been searching for you for years. But he's tremendously happy to know that you're alive. And now he's awaiting a letter from you. But I said to the Polish guide, you know, I have forgotten all my Polish. So she said, that's no problem. You write to me in French, because my degree is in French, English and German. You write to me in French and I will translate the letter and will give it to him personally. That's what I did. I wrote to him, I too am tremendously happy that you're alive, and so much so that I will come and visit you in Poland. So the letters went backwards and forwards. Each time the French guide translated for me and passed it on to me. In my last letter, before actually going to Poland, I asked my brother, Zbishu, I said, before your mother died, because she died in 1954, and I left in 1947, before she died, did she ever show you where she put my second sister? So he read back and said, yes, she did take me, and she showed me the house where she put your second sister. But all I remember was that it was on a small farm. I mean, the town I knew, because Rabbi Schonfeld, who gave me the papers, it was written, the town where she was. So that I knew. So he said, all I remember was that it was a little farm in this town. I don't remember her name, but, and of course this story goes back to some over 30 years ago. So, in my last letter, I said to him, if you really honestly want to tell me that you still love me after all these years, then I've got a tremendous mission for you to complete before I come. Since you told me that you saw her on a little farm, your job is to knock on every single farm door till perhaps you find her. That is what I'm asking you to do before I actually come to see you. Okay. In the meantime, I've already bought my tickets. I've decided to go. And just before I leave, of course, not speaking Polish, I phoned up the Polish guide, and I had to tell her what day I'm coming, what time, where. At the end of the conversation, she said to me, your brother has done his homework, has done his job. He has found your sister. And I have already been to your sister's house and told her that you're coming tomorrow to Poland. This was the telephone conversation. Before I continue, in the last letter that my brother wrote to me, he put in several photos. You remember I told you that I had no photo, neither of my father, neither of my mother, or anyone of my family, till 1995. This letter from my brother arrives, and in it, first photo I picked up was the photo of my father. The original photo that he left in this Polish woman's house before he went away. And then a photo of myself as a little boy, a photo of himself as a little boy, and yet another photo of him as a grandfather holding his grandson in his arms. Can you imagine? When I looked at this photo of my father, how I felt I was. Anyway, to continue. So, I come to Poland. I come to this, but the guy told me on the phone that, Alex, your sister won't be able to come to meet you at the airport because unfortunately she's not feeling very well. But the following day, after you come, we will go to your sister's house. Okay. I arrived in Poland with my brother there, with all his mishpacha, all his family, with bouquets of flowers, because Polish people, even to a man, it's a custom, they greet them with a bunch of flowers. So I see all my brother's family. Then we go to my brother's house, and Polish guide, she said to me, this was, by the way, in August. I was on holiday my profession is a teacher all my life, and I was on holiday from school. That's when I could go to Poland. So, and I said to the guide, I hope you will be there to translate for me. She said, of course. She said, for the week that you will be there, I will be with you day in and day out to translate for you. Because I'm on holiday from Auschwitz, and I'm on holiday from my teaching, from my school. And I won't leave you on your own for a whole week till you depart. An angel from heaven. And so it was. We spent till 4 o'clock in the morning in my brother's house talking. And of course, my Polish guide, who was called Edwidge, or Edwiga in Polish, she translated everything for me. The first thing I said to her, please tell my brother that I cannot eat anything in his house except fruit. Because I brought with me plenty of tins, kosher tins. Knowing that there are no Polish restaurants, certainly not in 1995 in Poland, and certainly not where he lived. But he lived in the same town that I was taken to by this Jewish man. It was the same town, coincidence. The following day, we go to my sister's house. A little farm, as my brother said. We enter the house, and the first thing, first of all, if you can imagine the scene, the sister who was 4 years older than I, who was separated from me. I was 1, she was 4 or 5. We hadn't seen each other, we didn't know of each other, nothing at all. But my sister said to me, through the Polish guide, I've been searching for you, my brother, all over the world. But she could never find me. Why? Because when I was adopted, I changed my name and I took the name of my adopted parents. Instead of being called Alex Rebenstock, I was called Alex Rosin. And of course, neither my brother nor my sister could ever find me. First thing, and of course, my brother and all his family and the guide, we all were here in my sister's house, little farm. And the first thing she did was she had on her mantelpiece, she took a little photo And who was the photo of me as a little boy that my father left. And she said in front of everyone, my darling brother, all my life, every night I took your photo in my hands, lifted up my eyes to God, and I said, God, if my brother is still alive, excuse me, if my brother's alive somewhere, please bring him to me at least once before I die. And here, God has answered my prayer, and here you are. This was the meeting first thing in the house. And I must tell you that I went to Poland, it was 6 times. The last time, the 5th time I went, the daughter of my sister, who I met, and her children, and her husband. By coincidence, I have 2 girls, and she had 2 girls. I had, at that time, 5 grandchildren, and she had 5 grandchildren, who I met. The 5th time, my sister's daughter tells me, Uncle Alex, my mother is very seriously ill. She should have been in the hospital, but she refuses to go. We have tried, but without success. Perhaps you can speak to her. So I asked her through this Polish guide, again, on each visit, it was always in the same month, August, where the Polish guide was free, and she stayed with me on each occasion, the whole week. She stayed with me all day, translating. She slept in my sister's house with me. On this occasion, I said to my sister, after all these years that we've been apart, now that we found each other, please listen. And if you have to go to hospital, please, for my sake, go. But she said no. She said, if I've got to die, I want to be in my house. Anyway, that was the 5th time. I then went away, back to Paris, and I think exactly 2 months later, remember this is all in 1995, and that already was 96. One day the phone goes, one of my daughters picked up the phone, and she couldn't understand what the man was saying, but she said, Papa, take the phone, because I don't understand what he's saying. I said, yes, I am your sister's doctor. This is in Poland. Your sister's lying in my hospital. And she has begged me to phone you to come as quickly as possible, because I can tell you she has only a few days left to live. The next day, and this was not in August, it's in my school, in my working school, I said to my director, my headmaster, I must leave for Poland as my sister is dying. I rushed, got a ticket, I rushed to Poland. It was in the winter time, in December. I came to the hospital, and And it's a good job that I speak German, because Polish I didn't know. The German doctor said to me, the only person that she asked me to phone or she wanted to see was you. Not her husband, not her children, not her grandchildren, just you. And I want to thank you for coming so quickly. So I'm now in the hospital. Again, each time I stay for a week. Just before leaving, just before I left my sister for the very last time, now that I knew what was happening, I said to the doctor, please doctor, in our religion, someone who's about to die, we have a special prayer to recite. And I would ask you, please, doctor, ask my sister in Polish just to repeat word for word what I'm going to say to her. And of course, what was it? It was the Shema Israel. If I can just go back slightly to something else important. On my second day with my sister, I decided to take a trip to Krakow, to the shul, what we call the shul of Ramah. I took the whole family, 2.5 hour trip to come to the synagogue in Krakow. In Krakow, in a synagogue, which was never destroyed by the Nazis, because they transformed the synagogue into a uniform place. In the synagogue, I asked the guide, everything I asked whatever I asked my sister, please translate to her for me. I took my sister to the Aron HaKodesh, to the Ark in the synagogue. I opened the Ark, and I then, in front of the Ark, in front of the Sefer Torah, I said to my sister, my darling sister, I want you to know that you are not a Catholic. You were born a Jewish child, same as myself. But unfortunately, because of the Nazis, they killed our parents. You were separated from me. I stayed with this person, but you went away. And you led a Catholic life, but that's not your fault. But I hope and pray that as you were born a Jewish girl, you will also die a Jewish girl. And this was in the synagogue. And then I come back to the last thing. I then recited the Kriya Shema, and my sister repeated word for word after me. The end of the week has come. I had to go back, and as before, at the last moments with my sister, knowing that in a couple of days she would no longer be in this world, my sister embraced me and said to me the following: my darling brother, now that I have seen you, now that God has answered my prayer and brought you to me, He can now take me. This was These were her dying words. I kissed her and I left her. But before I left her, I also brought the rabbi from Krakow to the hospital, and I said to him, in the event that I can perhaps not be able to come to the funeral, I want you to assure me that you will make sure that she has a Jewish burial, in spite of her two daughters who are strong Catholics, in spite of her grandchildren. Please, I beg of you to make sure that she has a Jewish burial. And I can tell you, God has answered my prayers as well. He arranged everything, and she had a Jewish burial. And the Polish guide from 1995 to present day is in contact with me. She has friends in Paris, so every year she would come to Paris for a week. And of course, the first place she came to was my house. And the first time she came, she said to me, I've got something wonderful to tell you, Alex. My mother, she said, died 3 months after your sister. And where is she buried? She's buried, although your sister is at the end of a Jewish cemetery, but the very next row is a Christian cemetery. And my mother is buried side by side with your sister. And every month I go and visit the grave. I light a candle for my mother and for your sister. Coming back to Paris, to my rabbi of my synagogue, when I told him this story, he said to me the following. He said, my dear Alex, and of course we became great chaverim, great friends. I used to learn with him every day. He said to me, my darling Alex, if you never ever do another mitzvah in your life, you have accomplished the biggest mitzvah of your life. Why? Because your sister died as a Jewish girl. You said Shiva for her. You recited Kaddish for the whole year for her, and that is what is biggest mitzvah of all. And so I did everything possible. I accomplished something. God listened to my prayers that I managed to see my sister once again. And unfortunately, all my two sisters, they were Jewish. Their children are Jewish, but they have cut the contact between us. And unfortunately, I have no contact with them whatsoever. As I said, I've given many conferences about my life history to schools, synagogues, both in France, in England, and the United States. And this is a magazine of a paper called the Hamodia, and I was interviewed in English in London for New York. It's difficult to show you what's written here. The Odyssey of a Child Survivor. This is giving a conference this took place in Bnei Brak in Israel. You see me at the conference, and you see me as a young schoolboy. If you can all see it. And then you see the passport that I received before leaving Poland, and also the rabbi who gave the wonderful advice to my father. This is the rabbi in Poland. It is through his chesed, through his tremendous, what can I say, kedusha, that he gave this advice to my father, and he gave the advice to all parents about circumcising their boys. This is a little picture of the brother that I grew up with in the Catholic house. It's difficult to see from here. This is once again the Rabbi Schonfeld from England, who, as this book says, Holocaust hero. This Rabbi Schonfeld, he saved 4,000 children before the war, and this was, of course, we know it as the Kindertransport. Before the war and after the war, he not only came to Poland, but he went to all the countries, Hungary, Czechoslovakia, Austria, and each time he went, he managed to find a handful of orphans who were hidden by the non-Jewish people. And he brought them all to England as well. I must tell you a little anecdote. This rabbi, when he came to Poland, and as I said, he went to everywhere possible where Jewish children could have been hidden, with the nuns, with the monastery, everywhere. One night, he decided to go into the nuns. It was at night, because he heard that there was Jewish children hidden there. He knocks on the door, and the nun opens the door, and the chief says, "Yes, can I help you? What brings you here?" He said, "Well, it's cold outside. It was in the winter. Could I come in?" So he came in, and he's asked the chief sister, chief nun, "Do you have any Jewish children here with you?" And the answer was no. But Rabbi Schonfeld, first of all, he was 2 feet tall. He was tremendously tall, with beautiful blue eyes, handsome, and if you looked at him, you were tremendously impressed just by his stature. And he never ever took no as an answer. So, although the chief sister said no, he said to himself, "I've got a way of finding out." And what was it? He started reciting the Shema Yisrael, the prayer that we say 3 times, at least 3 times a day, and every day. The children, who were all already in bed, as he was reciting word for word, suddenly a girl gets up from the bed and goes and stands next to him. as he finished the first paragraph, then he started to sing in Yiddish. It's a Jewish language, a mixture of German and Hebrew. He started singing in all the Hasidic songs. And gradually, one by one, he had 9 children at his side. Then he turns around to the chief sister and he says to her, I thought you told me that you did not have any Jewish children here. Now that I've got them, I'm taking them with me. And he took the 9 children away with him. This is just one of the wonderful anecdotes of this tremendous, great hero. I had the privilege not only to be saved by him, that I can stand in front of you and tell you my story, but in London, he was instrumental in forming one of the first Jewish schools in England. Not only was he a rabbi of a synagogue, but he was an educator, rabbi, and a hero. And I attended in London his school, one of his schools. So that I always had the contacts with him up to the last minute of his life, because he passed away in 1984. So that I always had this wonderful contact with him. And this is my story. As I said, Baruch Hashem, I thank God every single day of my life that I was saved, that I was able to form a wonderful family that I have today. I have 2 grandsons. One grandson who came to Israel, he attended the yeshiva, he went into did his army service. He married here in Jerusalem to also a French girl, who also did her army service. And now, Baruch Hashem, they have made me a great-grandfather. And now I have 8 grandchildren, and 1, please God, on the way. So that's, I can say, thank God 1,000 times every day of my life. But I'd like to give a message, what I always give when I speak to school children and young children. The message is, we have what we call the past, present, and future. The past, the present, cannot be associated without the past. And the present cannot be associated with the future. You, my children, it is your job in your life to transmit the story that I've told to your children and to your grandchildren, and to make sure that this is never ever forgotten in life. That's my message.
Alex, I want to thank you so much from the bottom of my heart, from all of us. And I call on a very close and dear friend, Roy Sher, to give a vote of thanks. From all of us, you are our hero. There's no one like you. Your story is ain't there are no words. You are a true hero of Israel. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, Alex. In the name, as I said, I'm dumbfounded. What a story. What a gentleman. What a hero. God bless you. Real proud of you. The generations that are being born, all those angels that they just have saved you. And it's also your presentation. You talk with clear, beautiful language, with such humility. And I've just broken up into people. Please accept this gift. God bless you. Thank you.
Could I just ask one question?
Yes, please do. Please.
You can, Mr. Chair, we can come to the front.
Yeah. I'd like to ask you if you ever thought of presenting your brother and his mother in the gardens of the righteous.
Yes.
What they did for you.
Yes, I answer your question, and the reply is yes. It's in Yad Vashem.
Yeah, in the gardens.
She is inscribed, and my brother, they're both inscribed in the Yad Vashem.
Have you ever brought him to Israel? Is he still alive?
As I said, unfortunately, he didn't want to have any contact with me because he thought that I was a very rich man and he was very poor, that I would give him large sums of money. So because of money, he decided not to.
And the money is what saved you.
And the money is saved me.
Anyway, call up your board, and now you have long years and have more and more grandchildren. You defied Hitler.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Alex, thank you so much. The book is even in the darkest moments, and even in your darkest moments, look how you have risen, and look how you're a miracle.
Thank you.
And our hero. Thank you so much.
It's a shame that they can't see the pictures.